So, Rebbe, we appreciate you getting on a call with us. So, as I mentioned to you, we have a Shari Torah class of 95 chat. And over the past couple of days, it's gotten very interesting with everything going on in the world. And somebody quoted you and said, if you want to know what's going to happen tomorrow, look at yesterday because history constantly repeats itself. So while that's the case, somebody else said, why don't we ask Rabbi Wein directly? And we figured we would have a call together. So,
okay, I'm not a prophet. And but it's evident over the last 100 years of Jewish history that somehow heaven is closing down the exile. Country by country, bit by bit, all the exile communities have shrunk. The United States may not have shrunk, but because of assimilation and intermarriage, I think there are less Jews in the United States now than there were in 1950. In 1950, there were about 6 million Jews. I think today, when they count, there's 4.5 million, because there's like 5 or 10 million that have no shaykhs. So to me, that's a process. And it seems to be a process in America, too. And now that there are so many outside forces in America that I think will make it increasingly difficult to be an Orthodox Jew in America in the future. So I think that that should be taken into consideration. I cannot tell you what to do with your personal lives. But, there was a Jew in Muncie. He told me he's going to rent an apartment in Yerushalayim and he's going to buy one in Florida. And I told him, I don't give financial advice, but that's the wrong thing to do. You should buy in Yerushalayim. You'll rent in Florida. And that's now, for various reasons, he had to leave Florida. And he's in Yerushalayim and he's renting. And every time he sees me, he says, why didn't I take your advice? To a great extent, we cannot bet against ourselves. We can't wager against ourselves. So it's tough here, it's tough there, it's tough everywhere. I'm Baruch Hashem, an old man. So, okay, there's nothing. I've lived most of my life, and whatever is. But you're younger people yet. And, I'm not pessimistic, but I think I'm realistic, and I think that you're going to have a more difficult go of it than you imagined.
So this whole call with you started because I quoted you twice in our back and forth regarding today's times, and I quoted you two sayings. One was that history always repeats itself. If you want to see what's going to be tomorrow, look what happened yesterday. And the second quote I quoted you on was that once a society accepts Toeva as legitimate Derech al Chaim, society's over. And that's basically spurred on.
I think that both quotes are true. I mean, you had a Supreme Court decision today that shows you that Toeva is acceptable. Not only acceptable, it's protected by the law. So if you look at what destroyed Greece and Rome, I mean, the Roman Empire was there for 500 years, the most powerful nation in the world, and it all collapsed. It all collapsed from the inside, not from the outside. The collapse of countries is always from the inside, not from the outside. The Soviet Union collapsed from the inside, not because anybody shot a rocket at it. And Hitler collapsed from the inside, too. And always, if we're ma'aminim b'Hashem, so history is, so to speak, His will, and that's how it plays itself out. It plays itself out that way, and the struggle that Torah had against Greek culture and Roman culture, and then against Christianity and against Islam and against secularism and against communism, is all the same thing, is because the immorality that's involved destroys it.
What is it that the Rav feels is the impetus that should tell people to drop everything and come to Eretz Yisrael?
I don't think you have to drop everything, but you should explore. You should invest. I don't know what your financial situation is, but instead of buying the bigger house in the 5 towns, stay in a smaller house and buy something in Ramat Bet Shemesh. And
in 1935,
it's more money here. It's more money here.
Everybody here has talent, and the talent is transferable. And the state of Israel needs all the talent it can get. And there still is a lot of opportunity here, business-wise, professional-wise, Torah-wise, but it's a struggle. It's, Eretz Yisrael is kosher. But, I think you have to, I was making Aliyah for 40 years till I finally could do it. But I always, my wife and I always planned on it. We did everything we could. We saved every penny to try and buy something here, which we were successful in doing. It's not easy to have money when you're a rabbi. Or when you're the head of Sharei Torah. There's no money there. But we scrimped and we saved. And I'll tell you, it's also a question of expectations. One of the great problems of current society is that we have very, very high expectations. And the higher your expectation, the greater your disappointment. When you come there to Israel, you have to have low expectations in every way. And if you have low expectations in every way, it's great. All of a sudden you see the light of Eretz Yisrael shines on you. But if you come with very high expectations, you expect to see the Shekhinah immediately, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be frustrated.
I tell people if you have to go to a Mishrad of anything, that expect it to take 5 times. If it takes 6 times, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, the bureaucracy. It's the Middle East. It's a combination of the Middle East and Soviet Russia. That's the combination here. Okay, so you have to deal with it. But overall, I say only one thing. That Eretz Yisrael is a Yiddish Leben. It's a Jewish life here, whatever it is. Yontiv is Yontiv, even Shabbos is Shabbos. You hear it on the radio. You hear it. It's a Jewish life, whatever. And the secular Israeli is also, he's got a lot of geschmack to him. He's part of the ball game. And you have to deal with him. Okay, so we deal with it. But I think that. I really think that, they talk about flattening the curve. I think America has flattened the curve pretty much already. I don't know whether or not, I don't know how long, nobody could take half a century, but it's not on the upscale. And, the Meshech Chochmah, I always quoted it, the Meshech Chochmah said, Hoi Homrim al Berlin Shezeh Yerushalayim. There was a time that Berlin was Yerushalayim. You had Hildesheimer's Yeshiva, you had the Orthodox Kehillah, you had all the culture, you had David Tzvi Hoffman. I mean, Rabbi Soloveitchik was in Berlin, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was in Berlin, Rav Hutner was in Berlin, but Berlin wasn't Yerushalayim. And Lakewood isn't Yerushalayim either. And
right, what about the difficulties that are presented with moving a family to Eretz Yisrael with different age groups?
Enormous difficulties. especially children at a difficult age, you know. The best time to move is when they're somehow settled, you know. They're in yeshivas already, they're in girls' high school, when they're mature. Either that or when they're very young. But if you move in the middle, you know, the 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, you're going to see problems. I mean, that's the experience here. It's not that those problems can't be overcome, but you should know that it's difficult. And it's difficult because you were always an immigrant. You'll never speak Hebrew the way they speak Hebrew. You'll never have the mindset. You will always have the American mindset. But Afal Pikain, you have to look at the big picture. The big picture, it's great.
I remember I once had a conversation with Rabbi when I was in Eretz Yisrael like 5-6 years ago with my brother Daniel Staum. And Rabbi said that we need Americans to come to Israel and be Americans. Because now it's too polarized. It's like you're either Haredi or Mizrahi, there's no in between.
That's right. Well, it's becoming less than that. There are a lot of people now that ride the fence.
Is that where the issues come from?
Well, like a lot of it is because the problem is here because the politics here is real. It's not in America. You know, I'm a Haredi or I'm a Mizrahi. Doesn't make much of a difference. But here it makes a difference because of the politics and the representation in Knesset and the laws, etc. So it's more intense. Everything here is more intense. It's an intensive place. The davening is more intense. The learning is more intense. The problems are more intense because it's Eretz Yisrael. And that's really what's involved. But I think if you have the big picture, then people do very well here. We have a lot of Talmidim from Shaarei Torah here that have done very well. And everybody comes with a skill set, and whatever your skill set is, that's the one to use. And most skill sets are easily transferable. And there are people here that would work at American jobs. You know, I mean, it's crazy because the time difference, but they do it, and you know, they're able to do it.
I'm curious if I can ask Rabbi, it's Yitzi Staum again. Hashkafically, what about like I work in Kiruv, and people have asked me about moving to Eretz Yisrael. I said as soon as everyone in America is from, you know, then I've fulfilled my obligation. So
we have plenty of Fry people here also, Yitzi.
I know, but there are people there who can deal with them. What about are we allowed to just leave Gullus and leave the people here?
I grappled with that for years. And I asked many great men, and I never got a good answer. Everybody has to find his own way. But and my rule in life is that no one is indispensable and no one is replaceable. So there'll be somebody else that'll do. If Yitzi Staum doesn't do it, there'll come another guy that'll do it. Maybe he won't do it as good, and he won't be as successful. You know, okay. That's how I made up my mind. If Berel Wein, so somebody else. So there's a different Shaarei Torah. So there is. There's a different base Torah. So there is. I don't. If you were the only person in America doing Kiruv, then that maybe it's a stronger question. But I don't think that that's the case at all. And I think there are 50 guys that would take your job tomorrow if it was available. So why am I, I mean, in this week's Parsha, the Meraglim, that was their cheshbon. They'll go to Eretz Yisrael, there'll be new guys. The new guys will never be as good as they are, so that we're not going.
Mm-hmm.
That's Hatzas HaYetzer. The Yetzer Hara works very good. It makes a lot of things kosher and acceptable that may not be so. So I don't know. Everybody, I can't tell you what to do on an individual basis. I know I don't want that power, and I don't have it. I only throw things out there that you should consider. That this is something to consider, to look into. Talk to Nefesh B'Nefesh. You don't have to sign up for anything. Yeah, but I don't think there's anything wrong in finding out. Once you find out, and there are real facts, I think there have been about 30,000 Americans over the last 4 years that have come and made Aliyah. Basically, almost all of them have been, have been able to do it. Would they be better off in America? Some would be, some wouldn't be. But that's life. You can't judge things. So I'm not here to give individual advice. I am here to tell you, though, that the whole of Jewish history tells me, that the curve has been flattened, and that your children cannot expect what you expected, and certainly cannot expect what your parents expected. I remember when I grew up, so America was open. You could do whatever you want. That's that's closing down. They're going to tell you how to run your schools. They're not going to let you have separate boys and girls schools. They're not going to let you discriminate, quote unquote. They're Harvey Shluchim Lamokum. They have 100 ways to do it. So it's a dangerous time. I'd say it's a very dangerous time. I agree to that.
If people are still in America planning to make Aliyah, in the meanwhile, there's turmoil and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the Goyish world, which does cross over. The Jews don't live in a vacuum; they are in and among the Goyim. How is one to relate to what's going on? Do Jews have to take sides in non-Jewish issues, and how do they live with that?
I don't. I mean, you have to take sides because of the fact that, I give my personal opinion, is that if Trump is not reelected, we're gone. Even though, I'm far from being a Trumpist, but that's the way it looks. And if all of these things are very, very dangerous to us. It's never been before. There was always a pride in being an American. That pride isn't there anymore. They're saying America is the most evil country in the world. It's racist, it's xenophobic. From the beginning, it's no good. Well, if it's no good from the beginning, it's no good for us either. What allowed Jews to be successful in America is that they were proud Americans. When it's not nice to be a proud American anymore, so the Jews are going to be hung out to dry.
Rabbi, this is Shimon Libuit. How is it possible that so many people see the world upside down? How is it possible that so many people don't look around the world and see how everywhere else in the world, just about, is less free, is more xenophobic or racist than the United States, and yet they still seem to believe that they're living in a country that is horrible and terrible, whereas
because they have been educated that way. The public schools and the high schools and especially the universities have, for over 50 years, have been taken over and indoctrinated in that way. And how did the Soviet Union exist for 75 years? To indoctrinate children from the beginning. That's how they see it. They've been indoctrinated. And it's, listen, in 1948, I was, that was 40, maybe 49. Anyway, I was a student at Roosevelt College in Chicago, in the night school. And the professor we had to take Philosophy 101, he was a sworn communist. And he made fun of me and the other two yeshiva guys in the class. He made fun of us publicly. And nobody said a word. So then, because there was the McCarthy scare, etc., so they went underground. But then they all came back, and they're the professors today. They're the ones, you know. You can't open your mouth. So Ben Shapiro needs armed guards. In my time, nobody needed an armed guard. But those are dangerous signs, very dangerous signs. So how's it that people see it that way? Because they're indoctrinated. That's how they see it that way. You can talk yourself into anything. I mean, look at what happened with this coronavirus thing. The government took away all of our freedoms. All of them, and we willingly gave them away. And we can't get them back. So you can have 10,000 protesters standing next to each other without masks, and that's good, but you can't have a minion of more than 20 people. Okay, there's freedom of religion. It's a tough time. You know, we're all going through a tough time. But
can Rabbi elaborate what Rabbi was saying about if Trump isn't reelected, we're done? Does that mean that if he is reelected, we have another 4 years till it starts getting really bad? Or?
Yeah, if you postpone the inevitable, that's what this is. The holding action. You postpone the inevitable.
Because the liberal side will press this issue even further.
It's not only the liberal side. The liberal side has become more left than it ever was. There's no limit to the left. And the left is always anti-Jewish, anti-Torah. It's always been like that. And one of the miracles in Israel is that the left here is pretty much under control.
How can we be Makar of the Geula?
But we're Makar of the Geula by raising our children properly, by having a good Jewish home, by supporting and learning Torah. That's how we're Makar of the Geula. There are no magic bullets. And it's a process. I think we're in the process. I don't know how far along, but we're much more closer than we were 100 years ago. Or 50 years ago. Anyway, it's food for thought. Again, I'm not telling you any directions. It's far beyond me to be able to do it. And everybody has their own issues and their own problems, their own challenges. But there's a general picture to look at, and I think that this is a general picture.